We are going to demonstrate the traditional procedure for making Siddha Tailam, or Ayurvedic medicated oil. Siddha Tailam is made differently than Western herbal oils, and it is many times more potent. For making Tailam, large quantities of herbs are cooked along with liquid and oil in a long process. The end result is a potent oil, heavily saturated with the oil-soluble healing properties of the herbs. The traditional formula for Ayurvedic herbal oils requires three components. 1. Snahadravyas, or oily substances. This may be grita, or clarified butter, til tailam, or sesame oil, narikela tailam, or coconut oil, eranda tailam, or castor oil, kattu tailam, or mustard oil, or other vegetable oils or animal fats. The second necessary component for making an Ayurvedic herbal oil is drava-dravyas, or liquid substances, which may be kvata, or herbal decoction, swarasa, or fresh pressed juice of herbs, plain water, kshira, or milk from various animals or vegetable sources, mutra, or urine from various animals, yogurt, whey, or vinegar. The third and final component of a medicated oil is kalka dravyas, or herbal powders for making a kalka or paste. Some recipes contain many dozens of different ingredients and undergo repeated cooking for enhanced potency. The simplest formula for herbal oil consists of oil, herbal decoction, and kalka. In certain cases, a different set of herbs is used for the decoction and paste, but in other cases these ingredients are the same. The traditional proportion for Siddha Tailam is 4 parts decoction to 1 part oil to 1/4 part kalka or paste. This would mean that for 1 cup of sesame oil, 1 quart or 4 cups of finished decoction would be required, along with the paste made from 2 ounces of herbs. Though the traditional Ayurvedic texts vary as to the method for preparing snahapaka, or decoction for oils, the generally accepted standard formula is prepared by cooking 1 part of herbs with 16 parts water over low heat until the liquid is reduced to 1/4. For 1 cup of oil, this would require 4 cups of finished decoction, prepared by cooking 1 gallon of water with 8 ounces of herbs until the liquid is reduced by 3/4, leaving 4 cups of liquid. For each 8-ounce cup of herbal oil, this formula requires 10 ounces, which is well over half a pound of herbs. Every gallon of oil requires 10 pounds of herbs to produce. Some modern manufacturers of Ayurvedic herbal products are now using significantly less herbs to cut costs, but these are the proportions traditionally recommended by the ancient texts. Today we will be demonstrating the traditional process for preparing an Ayurvedic herbal oil by making shatahvadi Tailam. The recipe for shatahvadi Tailam comes from the Bhava Prakasha, written by Bhava Mishra. It is used in the treatment of arthritis and gout and for its pain-relieving qualities, for which purpose it can be used undiluted. Thinned in dosha-specific base oils, this oil can be used as a Tridoshika Abhyanga oil for daily massage. For this purpose, shatahvadi Tailam may be diluted 1 part to 5 parts of base oil in sesame oil for vata, coconut oil for pitta, and mustard oil for kapha. Due to a predominance of herbs in this formula with pachana, digestive stimulant qualities, this oil is suitable for use as a massage oil in samadosha conditions, or conditions where there is accumulation of ama and undigested toxins, in addition to an increase of doshas. For these purposes, shatahvadi Tailam may be diluted 1 to 4 in a base of sesame and mustard oil combination for Vata, safflower oil for Pitta, and mustard oil for Kapha. Shatahvadi Tailam is also suitable for nasya treatments, for which purpose 2 to 4 drops may be administered to each nostril. It is also an excellent choice as a gargle for sore throat. It may be taken internally for indigestion, gas, and rheumatism in a dose of 3 to 5 milliliters before meals. Before using this or any other Ayurvedic herbal preparations, it is wise to seek the advice of a qualified Ayurvedic practitioner. As powerful as Ayurvedic medicines are to heal dis-ease, when properly prescribed, they may be every bit as dangerous when they are taken in the wrong ways or for the wrong condition. For children, the elderly, pregnant women, or when there are acute symptoms of disease, it becomes doubly important to seek the advice of a qualified Ayurvedic physician before using any Ayurvedic herbs or formulas. The shloka which describes the preparation of shatahvadi Tailam says, Kvatena shatapushpaya kushtasya madhukasya cha ekaekam sadhayi tailam vata raktarojapaham, which means using a decoction of aniseed, costus root, and licorice root combined, medicated oil is made which cures gout and arthritis and relieves pain. For making 1 cup of shatahvadi Tailam, we must first prepare 1 quart of decoction of each of the 3 herbs mentioned. Because the recipe says ekaika, meaning every single one, we are making 1 quart of decoction for each of the individual herbs, instead of the usual 1 quart total decoction usually recommended for 1 cup of oil. Cooking of decoctions should be done slowly over low heat, and the process of making an herbal oil usually requires at least 2 days to complete. The herbs called for in this recipe are aniseed, costus root, and licorice root. Costus root, called kushtha in Sanskrit, is one of the many Ayurvedic herbs which is currently threatened toward extinction in its native habitat in India due to over-harvesting and unsustainable harvesting methods. Costus is a very special Himalayan herb valued throughout the world since ancient times for its fragrant oil and its use in many traditional Ayurvedic formulas like Brahmi ghee, Yogaraj Gugulu, and Dhanvantara Tailam. Due to the endangerment of this species, we recommend that people do not ever use costus root or any formulas containing this herb unless they can be absolutely certain that it has been cultivated rather than harvested from the wild where its existence is threatened. For this Tailam we have chosen to substitute angelica root, which shares the bitter and pungent taste, the heating virya, and the pungent vipaka of costus root, and also has similar nervine, anti-rheumatic, and carminative actions. Angelica also adds a nice aroma to the finished oil, as does the earthy and fragrant costus root. Other suitable substitutes may include burdock root, which shares the anti-rheumatic, nervine, and bitter qualities of costus, and is in the same botanical family. Burdock is more bitter than costus and less pungent, and so this herb is very useful for pitta and kapha conditions, but may be too cooling for vata. Another possible substitute is galangal root, which also shares the anti-rheumatic, nervine, and aromatic properties of costus. This herb is somewhat more pungent and heating than costus, and must be used with care, especially for pitta. The recipe calls for 8 ounces each of coarsely powdered aniseed, costus, or in this case angelica, and licorice. We are starting with whole anise seeds, which will need to be ground into a coarse powder. Grinding of some herbs can be achieved using a coffee grinder, but for tougher herbs like roots, bark, and wood from trees, it is nearly impossible to attain a fine powder using a coffee grinder. We prefer using an Indian-style grinding machine, which are now made domestically and sold at Indian markets or online. These grinders are sturdy and generally do a good job grinding all sorts of spices and herbs. They also come with different sized grinding containers for grinding liquid or solid ingredients. We will be using the small jar intended for grinding dry spices. Anise seeds are easy to powder, and since we are making a coarse powder, this should be achieved in 1 or 2 pulses in the grinder. Our angelica root is cut and sifted pieces, and so we will need to grind this to a coarse powder as well. This is also no challenge for the Indian-style grinder, though this may be difficult to achieve with most coffee grinders. For making decoction, it is recommended that coarsely powdered herbs be used. As these are not generally available on the US market, the best solution is to buy small pieces of herbs which can be coarsely powdered as needed. If it is not possible to use coarsely powdered herbs, larger pieces of herbs or finely powdered herbs may be substituted. Larger pieces of herbs, like the cut and sifted herbs commonly sold on the US market, do not let off their pranas as quickly as powdered herbs when they are decocted. To ensure that the potency of the herbs is fully extracted when using larger pieces, it will be necessary to add more water and to cook the decoction for a longer time. For cut and sifted herb pieces, it may be necessary to use 2 times the amount of water used for a coarse powder, and to cook the decoction twice as long to achieve a decoction of the same potency. In any case, the decoction should be reduced to 4 cups. Using a fine powder for decoctions has the disadvantage that it is difficult to strain without fine particles getting into the finished decoction. A small amount of herbal powder should not be problematic for herbal oils, as fine powder is added to the cooking oil anyway, but larger quantities of powder remaining in the decoction will make cooking difficult in the final stages due to a disproportionate amount of paste in comparison to oil. Our licorice is already coarsely powdered, and so it may be added directly to the pan. We have added our powdered herbs to a large pan and will add 3 gallons of water for cooking. This will be reduced until 1/4 of the liquid remains, or in this case 3 quarts. After adding the water to the pan, it is a good idea to make a mental note of the water level, so that it is possible to estimate when the decoction has been reduced to 1/4. This measurement does not have to be precise, but it should be close. The water and herbs are brought to a boil over medium heat, stirring to ensure that the herbs do not stick as the liquid heats. When the mixture comes to a boil, the heat is reduced to a gentle simmer, and the decoction is allowed to reduce, stirring occasionally. Cooking a decoction should be done over very low heat to ensure the potency of the decoction. The longer a decoction cooks, the more the pranas of the herbs get extracted into the liquid. Also, if the heat is too high, the volatile oils of the herbs are more likely to evaporate, and burning is also more likely. Keeping a lid on the cooking decoction may help to retain the more volatile essence of the herbs, but it does also slow down the cooking time considerably. Over very low heat, a 1/4 decoction may require about 8 hours to complete. Our decoction took about 12 hours cooking time. Cooking a decoction for a longer time will increase its potency, but attempting to prepare a decoction in less time than about 8 hours will yield an inferior quality decoction, unsuitable for use in making herbal oils. When making a smaller quantity of oil, this process may be slightly quicker, but when making larger quantities of oil, it will require much more time. When making very large quantities of herbal oil, if the pan is not big enough to accommodate the entire recipe, it is possible to add additional water to the cooking decoction, or to add additional decoction to the cooking oil as liquid evaporates. However, if this is done, it is best to heat the liquid before adding to the cooking decoction or oil, as not to disrupt the process of decoction. When the decoction has been reduced to 1/4 its original quantity, the pan is removed from the heat and the mixture is allowed to cool for straining. Since we will not be preparing our oil until the next day, we have decided to leave the herbs to continue steeping in the cool liquid overnight before straining. Either way, the decoction should be stored in a cool place until it may be cooked with the oil. A decoction may be stored in a cool place for about 16 hours, after which it must be refrigerated to prevent spoiling. A decoction should ideally be used within 24 hours from its preparation.